break down the HFSP concept. So have fun staying poor. Does a good salary without buying Bitcoin right now will be no good in the future. So I think what they're asking here is if you're earning a good salary based on what people think in general. Let's say you're earning, what's a good salary? 125K,
Yeah,
120K.
that's a good
Yeah.
salary for
So
sure.
let's say at some point you're earning 120K. And over time, your cost, it depends on what you're spending on, right? So it depends on how much you're spending. So if you're spending 50K right now and you're making 120K, it may seem great right now, but if you don't increase your salary, if you don't keep earning more and more, your cost of living will catch up to your salary. So if you're earning $120,000 right now, let's say your cost of living rises at 5% per year. I think that may be a little, actually, that may be a little low. But
Probably.
$50,000 at 5% per year. How long would that take? Let's say 20 years. So in 20 years, your $50,000 expenses, if they rise at 5% per year, they will be $132,000. So at that point, would you consider 120,000 still to be a good salary? No. So it depends on context, right? So if you can keep your expenses down, if you can keep not spending and you can keep cutting your expenses, you can keep eliminating enjoyment, then yeah, your $120,000 salary will seem great. But if you want to maintain the same standard of living, then no, not at all. You have to keep earning more. You have to keep improving your skills. If and even as you get older, there's a concept called human capital. Have you guys heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
So
No.
human capital is basically what you are worth. So
Oh,
if
yeah.
you have certain skills, what you can convert it in, what you can convert your mind into, your skills into, right? So if you wanted to work a job where you're making $500,000 a year, and you can do that for 50 years, what's your human capital going to be? Like $25 million. But if you can only earn $10 a year, and you can do that for 50 years, your human capital is $500. So as you improve your skills, your human capital increases. But the issue with the current financial system is no matter what you do, it doesn't matter how skilled you get, you're going to run out of energy. You're going to run out of time. So even if you are the most credentialed person today, it doesn't really matter. In 10 years, 15 years, you're going to get disrupted. You're going to become obsolete. So no matter what happens, you're going to have to learn more. You're going to have to spend more time, energy, and money educating yourself so you can bump up your salary, because your salary is not going to be enough to cover your expenses in the future. So what Bitcoin does is it gives you a way to store your value. So when you do become obsolete, you can actually still make ends meet. You don't have to worry about living too long. I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have as a society today. People are worried that they're going to live too long because if they don't have enough money saved in retirement, they're going to have to work a part-time job. I've seen posts about people dying on the Walmart floor, right?
Yeah.
And that's really scary because if you're 80, 90 years old and your government is giving you $2,000 a month in social security or what is it, old age security in Canada, and your rent is $3,000 a month, how are you going to make ends meet? $2,000 is not enough. And at some point, $3,000 will be your rent while you're making $2,000 a month. So how are you going to make ends meet? Either you have your own savings or you work. So yes, have fun staying poor. That is at a very, I used to think have fun staying poor was just a way for people to make fun of other people, but no, it's actually reality, because on a fiat standard, no matter what, eventually you're going to become poor.
Yeah, it's a sad reality too. And there's this, you talked about the cost of living going up by 5%. There's sort of these connections, right? There's the debasement of currency, which causes the cost of living to go up.
Yes.
So there's this lag between all these things, and that's sort of the last thing to raise or go up would be the wages, because there's a lot of control and ability for the employers to not raise those. And so it's the furthest thing back on, or one of the furthest things back on there to go up with the inflation as well. So you're not, if the cost of living is going up 5%, you're lucky to go up 1% with your wages. Plus, you have to increase your skills, as Rajat talked about. It becomes this rat race, this treadmill that you're just always trying to catch up to the increase of everything. You're fighting against it, and life is getting harder and harder when in reality it should get easier and easier because everything becomes more efficient and deflation, everything becomes actually cheaper, but you're using the wrong currency. So yeah, have fun staying poor is, it's a catchy phrase. It is sort of poking fun, but below that is the reality of if you hold fiat, there's a again another sailor quote. If you we have a name for the people that save in fiat, we call them poor. It's a harsh thing to say, but man, it's a harsh reality as well. You don't want to be 80 working at Walmart as a greeter, collapsing because that's just what you've had to do to make ends meet because your savings didn't go as far as you thought they would because they were debased away, right? Savings are the things that get taxed by inflation, and that's what people are relying on largely. And the inverse effect happens with an asset that's sound and has a capped supply like Bitcoin. So if you save in Bitcoin, it's going to go further into the future. It's really that simple.
I think this is a really interesting thought experiment. Like I was thinking about this last week and I did a show on it this week, and the show was 2.5 hours long and I was arguing with the audience about it. And it was really hard for me to understand myself, but I think I understand it more now. And I think I have a clear picture of it. And I actually want to do a discussion in a separate video with you guys on this. I don't think we can cover it all today, but I want people to think about it this way. Let's say that you're very, very skilled and you're not going to be replaced by AI. People need you right now. You're in high demand. And let's say that you make $100,000 per year. And most people, aside from bonuses and commissions and things like that, most people get their annual bonus, or not bonus, but like inflation increase, which is also crazy to me. But let's say they get a 2 or 3% wage increase to keep up with inflation. So every year, even though your skills are growing, you're more experienced in your craft, because your salary is only going up 2% and you're losing about 15 to 20% in inflation, even though you're accruing more skills and experience and you're better than you were last year, you're actually earning about 12 or 13% less than you did last year. That to me is crazy. And you could argue different things with demand, AI being replaced. That doesn't matter. I'm talking about somebody who's very valuable. They spend an extra year getting better at what they do, and they take a net minus 13% pay decrease in fiat world. That's the reality.
I think that's part of working for an employer too, though, right? The employer is going to force your salary down. If you can work for yourself, like for example, all of us, we have our own one-on-one session. We've been increasing our cost over time because we have a bigger audience that we can sell to. Our skills have improved over time, so we're able to adjust our cost to inflation. And then there's other people, like you said there, Jor. If somebody's working at McDonald's, they don't have any power over their employer. They can't. If Walmart doesn't want to pay, if McDonald's doesn't want to pay them more, then they're not going to get more. So I think it's important to understand this, the have fun staying poor. I think it's important to understand the core principle here, because if you're getting a salary, no matter how great it is today, can you share my screen?
Oh, yeah. But I don't think it like matters of how much leverage they have, Rajat, because even as a McDonald's employee after a year, your skills would still be more than they were a year ago, unless you're regressing. But most people are better than they were last year at their job, but they're still getting a 13% pay decrease net of inflation, which is crazy.
It's also about the pool of workers who are willing to offer you the same service, though, right? Like, let's say you work at McDonald's. Over time, the people who can do what McDonald's needs them to do is going to increase, right? And then they can hire robots, for example. They can hire, like they've replaced their cashiers with robots.
Right. So that's what Steak and Shake did. That's why they're able to accept Bitcoin now, because they don't have to train their employees to accept Bitcoin. They're just machines.
Yeah, there you go. So I think that actually contributes to it, where there's a higher supply of labor. So they can get away with paying people $7.25 an hour, even though people can't make ends meet with that amount of money. So over time, the number of people who are willing to work is increasing. But that also comes around with, I mean, there's so many factors here. For example, people coming from other countries, they're willing to accept this wage because they got so much less in the other country, and they're okay with having a lower standard of living. But if somebody is in Canada, they probably wouldn't be able to live on 7.25 an hour. Actually, that's impossible.
Yep.
Yeah, so I wanted to show this graphic. This is what shows you how little you can buy with whatever salary you have. Back then, $1,000 a year would have been great. But today, $1,000 a year, what are you going to do with that?
What's that worth? $10 now? 1,000 back then?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it'd be $10.
And if you compare it to the price of gold, back then you could buy 35. You could buy 1 ounce of gold for $35. Today, the same amount of gold is going to cost you 3,500.
Mhm.
Yes, and sorry, Forrest. I just saw Forrest is chatting in the chat because I guess me and Rajat are talking too much here. But he said 8 to 10% inflation. I tend to agree in a sense of inflation, but like the example that I started the show with today, and this might just be like the time frame that I use, but I said like a year and a half ago when I started my YouTube channel, the price of Bitcoin was $35,000.
Mhm.
Today it's $110,000, which means that it's gone up 3x, which means that if you were storing your time and energy in fiat instead of Bitcoin, you lost 67% of your purchasing power in a year and a half. So by fiat debasement, that's actually about, I don't know, 25 to 30% per year you're losing there. Even though it's not like inflating, you're losing the purchasing power of those dollars that you stored it in. So I guess it's kind of subjective in that sense, but that's kind of my perspective of it.
Well, when you're pricing, because you're pricing it in Bitcoin, the sort of the like loss of purchasing power.
That's what I measure things in with. Like, that's what I think
Right.
Bitcoin is. It's a measurement of everything else in the world. And fiat is one of those things. And
Right.
just think about it. If you had dollars in a bank versus Bitcoin in a wallet, you lost 67% of your purchasing power. So, I mean, whatever that is, that's the reality of what happened there. So again,
Yeah.
like Bitcoin to me measures things, and that's the measurement of debasement in that sense.
Sure. Yeah. No, I just think that, I mean, it's clear we're still on an adoption curve as well, which is pricing in part of
For
the
sure.
value of Bitcoin. But, this gets down to another issue, which is that why don't we know what inflation is? Why do we have to
Yes.
guess? Why are we told
Yes.
one thing when it's clearly something else? Some number, we can make estimates. We all have different opinions on it. This is crazy. If you look at Bitcoin,
Right.
we know what the inflation schedule is. I mean, currently there's more Bitcoin added, 450 a day.
Yep.
It's but all of that can be factored into the price because we know it's predictable. Why
Yes.
is there this arbitrary number of the Fed are aiming for 2%? That was just a random economist from New Zealand said, hey, that's probably a good inflation number. Why is inflation not deflation? Why is it not even zero? But why is it not deflation? Like, it's just, this is so crazy that we even have to be like guessing at these numbers.
Well, the numbers that they use, they take out like some of the key metrics, like housing, I think isn't included in, and fuel and
Oh God,
things like
yeah.
people actually spend their money on. They just take it out of the equation.
And CPI, like they also just change what, they make the housing footprint, like the square footage of a house smaller. They change it from steak to beef so that inflation doesn't look as bad because
Yeah.
they're taking things out and putting in cheaper things. And that's like totally going to skew with all of the metrics. Yeah.
It's just how the system operates. They control it, they manipulate it. And that's why, when people say that Bitcoin can't go to $100 million because we don't have that many assets in the world, that's BS, because the
Bitcoin
assets
is
that
the
we
asset.
have, yeah, it's like that's in the controlled and manipulated system that we're moving away from. So that's why, to me, the only limit on Bitcoin is our imagination in the future, because that's what it really measures.